growing weary of running from room to room, practicing one-tooth insurance-driven dentistry? Then stay tuned for the latest episode of The Lionhearted, where Dr. Stephen Rasner will hand you the blueprint for what many call the gold standard of general practice dentistry.
Hi, everyone. Dr. Steve Rasner here, and welcome to The Lionhearted. Welcome back. You know, I look at my videos once in a while. At least I look at the clips that you guys see on Facebook or Instagram. And I've come to a couple conclusions. Number one, I look mad more than anything else. And it's because I am mad. I'm mad at some of you for not trying harder. I'm mad at some of you for not putting these ideas that we discuss each week into action. And I'm going to keep on trying. By the way, we have totally reversed the trend of downloading these podcasts. It is very much on the upswing again. And that, by the way, is a direct reflection of the same energy and effort required to turn your practice around sometimes. You know, looking in the mirror, being honest. I think I got a little stale. I did. I had some things on my mind. You guys don't care what's on my mind. You're tuning in because you want some good ideas that I come up with. Real ideas, workable, actionable ideas. And I'll tell you what else you seem to love. And I know this because I go back and I see the most downloaded podcast. And I could be wrong, but they always seem to have something to do with money. And your fees, that was a really highly downloaded podcast I did about a month ago. And just a week ago, I talked about stress, money, and other things. And anyway, I'm glad because I like talking about that. And I'm going to give you a different view on why you might not be reaching the levels you could reach. And I'm going to say this to you. Your organization is going to only be as good as your staff, as your team. Not you, doctor. Not if you want to come even close to the incredible potential productivity that you could have in a general solo dental practice. I said a general solo dental practice. If you want to reach anywhere near your potential, I don't care if you are the second coming of G.V. Black, Panky, Carl Misch, Pete Dawson rolled into one. You're not going to get there unless you have this incredibly polished, manicured team that gets it. And that is directly related to your bottom line. I'm going to say a couple things right now in regards to that staff dental ownership guy or woman and how I think you'll reach the pinnacle easier if you think about some of the things I'm about to say. And I truly believe with everything I own what I'm going to tell you. I thought about this on the way home, and I hope staff members don't get mad at me. I don't know, I'm speaking truth. What kind of team do you have? Do you have an incredibly responsive team or not? I think a lot of you don't. Do you ever watch Wimbledon in the summertime or the Australian Open or the one in the United States? Do you ever watch the ball girls and boys when they have to act and go get one of the tennis balls? Do you see that they sprint? That they don't waste a nanosecond to retrieve the ball, bring it back? That's their job. That is how they were trained. Somebody trained them. Somebody said, it's never okay to be casual about this. Now, I told you, don't get mad at me for that analogy. I'm not asking your staff to run and get tennis balls. But you could extend that analogy to the military. The military doesn't play around. They have very clear, concise policies and expectations of the people in the military. And I would say to you that some of you and many of your offices are underperforming directly related. You don't know why. And I do know why. It's directly related to response times of things that you need from the people around you. Let me give you one example. So understand something. I started just like many of you did 40 years ago. I had one employee. It was my Michelle, who's still with me 42 years later. At that time, like many of you, she was my dental assistant. She was my front desk employee. I don't know how long, I don't remember, so I'm not going to make up stories for you. But I think at one time, for at least a couple months, she did everything. And so I had a lot of time to train Michelle as to what my vision of what a dental office should be, which is what you should be doing. And I knew Michelle from the time I was in junior high school. So at that point, I guess I'm 20 some years old. I knew Michelle since I was 14. And yet, I think I experimented for like a month of allowing her and whoever else worked for me as we added 1 and 2. They didn't have to call me doctor. They could have just called me Steve. That doesn't work. Now, you may think I'm some pompous, you know what. Gosh, I hope I'm not. I hope what this is. By the way, 40 years later working for me, they call me Doc. And I like it. They don't call me Dr. Rasner all day long. They call me Doc. But they don't call me Steve. So why am I making a big deal about that? Because I really believe you have to draw the line. I know it's warm and fuzzy to put your arms around everyone and love them. I love my staff. And I told my staff I loved them last Saturday because we had just completed one of my live 2-day courses. And I was just so proud of them. I was busting. And there's nothing wrong with that. And they didn't say, we love you too, Steve. They said, we love you too, Doc. I am the boss. You need to be the boss. It doesn't work any other way. Why? Because we're all dealing with humans. And to get peak performance from humans, there has to be accountability. And it can't get diluted by the fact that we're pals and we're friends. You don't think I have emotions and close feelings, relationships for people that work for me? I have an average working person that works for me. If you added up everybody's years, it's over 20 years per person. Now, there's many that are under that, but there's many over the 20, hence the average of 20 hours. So yeah, I do. But I'm telling you, staff will function best when they have clear understanding and expectations of what their jobs are and where the line is. It just works better. And I think some of you, so specific examples. So in those early years, I had an enormous amount of time to share, more than I do now, to share with Michelle exactly the reasons why I do what I do with regard to dealing with people. So I explained back then the benefit of getting paid up front, for example. As I've said to you many, many times, anybody on the listening to the show that wants to question that, let me give you your scenario. I have obviously, many close friends in dentistry. And I remember one used to always say, oh my God. In fact, he said this to me a month ago. He said, oh my God, he had been out of the office for a while and he came back on a day and he said, you're not going to believe this. I got an $80,000 case today. 80 grand cash. That's what he told me. And by the way, I rarely have gotten anything close to that. And nor do I ever even think of that. Ever. I never walk into the office and think, oh, I hope I get a whatever, $20,000. I'd never approach dentistry that way because I don't. You know what dentistry is for me? And lots of you, it's my golf. I don't play golf. It's my love. It's my passion. It's my golf. I guess if I play, I've heard golf creates a love affair with many people that play it. I don't know that because I haven't played it enough to create that love. But dentistry I have. And it's a beautiful way, and I tell my patients that at times. I do. So back to this guy, and I said, well, that's unbelievable. In fact, I don't believe you. I don't believe that you've been out of dentistry for 4 months and your first day back, you do an $80,000 case that you get paid on. And as it turned out, the patient said they were going to do a treatment plan for $80,000, but they had paid him yet. And that's my point about when I told you, I explained over the years to Michelle the importance of getting paid up front, because that's the only time a case is really a case. And of course, it cuts down on the biggest weakness to all of our schedules at times, and that would be broken appointments. And that's because you can't replace the 2-hour or 1-hour broken appointment and ever get it back. See, you and I chose this profession called dentistry. And we have X amount of hours per day, don't we, to deliver. That's how we get paid. And when you lose because of a broken appointment, you're not getting it back. That's why you have to spend so much time developing rock solid principles with your team. And it is certainly worth all the meeting time that you've heard me allude to over this podcast over the last 3 years. That's the only way to get your team that way. But other things I taught Michelle over the years, because I had so many. So I'm telling you like that because I don't teach as much as I used to. I'm talking about my team. And I saw something in action this week that made me realize how important it is, how well educated and trained your team is. So one of my staff members, which by the way has been with me for 5 years, was relating a negative patient story to me and Michelle at the end of the day at the front desk. And the story was this, and I bet you've experienced this. This patient had a large restoration, direct, not a crown, done, by the way, by one of my associates, but it doesn't matter, it's under my name. And she developed pain. By the way, this was a big treatment plan. I had already done an implant on this patient, and my associate was doing some of the operative. Patient really had high regard for the office up till this particular day, which was a couple days ago. And she was calling because she had pain in the tooth ever since it was worked on. So we went to the chart, and in the chart it said, I rate the depth of a restoration toward the nerve from 1 to 3. This was a 2+. So this is why we do it, by the way. So I went back to the chart. I looked up tooth number 19. I think for my European friends, that's 3.6. And it said 2+. I said, there's a problem. And I heard the symptoms, and we told her that it would likely be requiring root canal based on the symptoms that she's giving. And I was about to refer her because I don't even do molar root canals. And all of a sudden, this beautiful relationship that had been developed over the last 8 weeks went a little south. Well, why does it hurt? Why didn't you tell me that at the time you did it? And there was an answer for that. She was sedated. And there was even a line in her treatment plan that she had signed saying number 19 was deep and might require root canal. You couldn't have done anything better in preparation than we did. And I heard this one staff member relate to me and Michelle next to me of that she was snippy and nasty or whatever. And I said, Michelle, would you please handle this in the following way? When Michelle called me back, informed me of the outcome of the call, Michelle said to me that she's a really cool person based on her conversation. None of you could possibly assume that we all have equal abilities to relate to the people in front of us each day. I mean, we do not have that. It's not true. So, again, I wonder, as we speak right now, you and I wonder how many patients you've lost because somebody wasn't trained enough in the vision that you want your practice to portray. So, for example, I mean, we could go on and on with this. I don't charge for broken appointments. I think it's a terrible idea for you to do it. You know why? We try to achieve, and you've heard me say this before, the outcome, the general rule of thumb is that we try to achieve for every patient appointment a positive feeling in that patient as they leave the office. Now, that's hard to do because there's a lot of things that go into that appointment. Are you on time? That's big. We are on time. We didn't used to be, by the way. We did not use to be on time. I was chronically late. And I just something 15, 20 years ago, I decided it was important enough for me, and I sat with my staff, and we developed ideas to be more prompt. So it's not an issue. Is the billing department, that's a big one, a really proactive, I mean, isn't it not true that my colleagues listening to me, I know it was true in my career, that for some reason, the people that do the billing and do your insurance get really riled up and aren't the greatest persons when it comes to dealing with disgruntled patients, which happens a lot because no matter how many times, and you know this is true, that you tell a patient with insurance that this is an estimate, that they could downgrade. Oh, that they never do that, right? They could downgrade the services that we are submitting to them. And then that would leave them with less coverage and hence a higher balance. It's just impossible to tell them. Another reason, by the way, for you to get out whenever you can, and I realize you can't do this in the beginning, of toxic insurance in your practice. That's why it's toxic. It's like the airline industry. Only in the airline industry is it okay to make people hurry up 2 hours before to wait, and then sometimes just cancel the flight because of some made-up mechanical complexity. So there's a lot that goes in to creating this team that carries you to the summit, if you will. And most of that is you, doctor, having clear expectations and being able, with no fear of communication. I didn't say yell at people. That never works. But you don't have to yell at people to get your point across. And you can be very proactive, but there's going to come a point if somebody repetitively disappoints you and does not get the message that you have to replace people sometimes. But you need unequivocally positive karma people, which is employees, staff, in key positions, of course. The financial coordinator, in my office, the financial coordinator and the new patient coordinator are the same person. It's Michelle. In the insurance or billing department, if that's something you have, if it's one person that does it all, there can be no question about that you have the right person in place. If you have a question about it, if you're telling me that most of the time they do a good job, then that doesn't work for me. I swear to you, as I'm talking and looking in this camera, or you're hearing my voice if you're not seeing me, I don't believe in 40 years, Michelle and many other of my staff members, certainly Michelle for sure, has ever carried baggage of what happened yesterday or the morning or the weekend into her job performance. Now, I realize that's a pretty hard person to find, but I have approximately 20 staff members, and most of them are pretty close to that. And the ones that are not don't work for me anymore, which is never fun. Guys, listen. Why would I waste, let's see where I'm at in the podcast, 22 minutes of your time talking about something like this unless I realize that maybe I haven't made it clear enough how important it is. You know, you can be just an amazing doctor, but maybe your hygiene falls apart because you have a weak recall system because the people in your office just don't think that's an important job. And they feel there's no consequences if there's open hygiene appointments every day. Now, I know a lot of us are struggling to find hygiene appointments since COVID, right? We are. If I had more physical room, I absolutely could add a hygienist a year ago. I have 7 rooms in my office, and I don't think I have any more room for a 4th hygienist. Besides, I don't know in the state of New Jersey if we're even allowed to do that if there's only one doctor. So the takeaway here is this. You've heard me get on this podcast multiple times, and I tell you these crazy productive weeks, or sometimes I tell you about the 2-day, $75,000 2 days I had, or I remember one was called the $133,000 3-day week. Do you think that possibly happens without a coordinated effort from every single individual in every single department that I have? Meaning the hygiene team, being on time, not having an office filled with multiple disgruntled, unhappy, did not reach their expectation patients. No, I really don't have a lot of those. In fact, I really get angry anymore in my career if there is one of those, because we are so crystal clear. And I don't know if I always was, by the way. When I say that, I mean in the first 15 years. I don't know. I don't remember. I think I did have more disgruntled patients back then. Do you know how unique it is for you to create and you can do it. I know there's a lot of young dentists that listen to me. I know this. And you have the world ahead of you right now. There's nothing to stop you except you from putting the time in. I know it's time intensive. I know it is to have all these meetings and there's no other way to do it. You simply can't. The Four Seasons Hotel and the Ritz-Carlton hotels they have massive amount of meetings per week. I know this for a fact. I've studied the culture of those two hotel chains. I have. So remember how I started this today. I started this by telling you the best way to start is to be a strong leader. I didn't say a mean leader. I didn't say yell at people. A strong, fair leader. By the way, I'm a firm believer of your staff members being the highest paid people at their particular job roles anywhere near your community, as long as they follow a lion-hearted philosophy. I mean, everybody has cross-trained in my office. I see Susan, my master assistant. That's the best assistant in my office. Patients are constantly walked every time from the back of the office in the clinic when they're finished to the front desk. And I don't just walk up. Somebody's walking with them, presenting the information to the front desk. My office is overstaffed, which you can afford to do, which is always better, as long as you are diligent about the amount of work that gets done. I know it's hard. It's constantly on my mind. It is a show that you're putting on, you doctor. You're putting on a show every day, every week, each year in your office that represents your brand. And you have to keep polishing and training and nurturing it till it reflects at a consistent level that you're proud of. I want to close, and if you want specifics, keep writing to me. A young man, probably doesn't even know it, wrote to me from Germany this week, and he absolutely made my whole month by writing to me. I'm looking for his name. I think it's Frederick. And if it's not, you know who you are. And I thank you for taking the time. You know what he said? I'm sharing this with you because it's such a common scenario around the world. He bought a practice from good old Dr. Joe. And maybe I ought to do a whole podcast soon or next week about when you do that. Because you know what you have to do? When you buy from good old Dr. Joe, it generally means his fees were low. It means that he preferred everything out. And you have a lot of training to do. But I look at those first 3 years. I don't think that's a lot of time. After you bought the practice, to give yourself, it's like doing a residency to me. Giving yourself 3 years to transform what was there into a model that is your model. And I think it would be a mistake to go in and fire everybody and raise your fees right away. You're paying dues. When you bought that practice, or you're getting ready to buy good old Dr. Joe's practice, you are also buying the concept that you have to take a couple years. You can't go in like the Lone Ranger, Rambo, and just change everything in 4 months. This doctor from Germany is living the dream, doing comprehensive exams on the existing patients of this good old Dr. Joe's office, as he describes, is just beautiful. It's basically what he says, and I can so relate to this. It's basically new patients every day in your recall. There's so much to do. So you don't want to drive them away. Listen, you will never satisfy everybody in a practice you buy. It's ridiculous. It couldn't possibly happen. Those of you watching tonight obviously got a great chance to enjoy my cat Tabitha, who hasn't left me alone for 1 second. You probably hear her purring through the whole thing. That's her. I love animals, by the way. All kinds. But he goes, the response of every patient, this is a couple years into this, is overwhelming. They're so grateful for us taking the time to do comprehensive exams. The word spread around quickly. We're booked for months. And now he's found an associate because he has so much work. I think I'm sharing this with you. And thank you, doctor, for writing to me. You should send me your number so I can speak to you. It really means a lot to me when I get letters like this, because it shows me you're listening. It shows me I know it works. I know what I tell you works. You need to believe. Why else would I be doing this? If you're having trouble with how to, like, well, I hear you, Doc. You say I have to train my staff, and I have to, but how do I train them? Well, I guess you have to start with hiring the right people. And by the way, that can take, that's part of that 3-year residency. Physicians, to become physicians, do a lot more than 3 years. You don't need that many unbelievable years of productivity to find financial success in your life, to be quite honest with you. And the old adage that preparing and measuring and all the things before you cut, before you act, all seem applicable as I'm speaking to you right now. Putting the time in and doing it right rather than going off half-cocked. Anyway, guys, this is it for this week. The takeaway is your team. Really sit back sometime this week and assess what kind of team you have. If you have 3, if you have 20 like I have, could we do better in different positions? Can we get the people that work for us to give us higher degree of productivity, consistency? Are they performing? Are they people staff members? In other words, are they 4 seasons type of, when I say 4 seasons, I mean the hotel. I love my staff to emulate the demeanor of 5-star hotel people because they always get it right, in my opinion. Have a great week. Keep listening, guys. Write to me. I love hearing from you. I'll see you next week on The Lionhearted. Thanks.